Well, that's not the result we were hoping for, but it's clear that Madam Justice Giroux carefully considered the law and the circumstances, and the important thing to remember is that Mr. Cam has been sentenced to life in jail with no parole for 25 years. So it will be 2042 before he can apply for parole, and as Madam Justice Giroux pointed out, there's no guarantee that he will get parole. Well, it's based on the circumstances of the offense, the nature of the crime, and the lack of an explanation for why Mr. Cam committed these murders. Hopefully, during the course of his time in custody, through psychological assessment, that explanation will come forward.
Do you think that the justice's ruling here was a rebuke of the notion of consecutive sentencing? Basically, her suggestion that, the parole board will deal with this?
No, I didn't hear her say that at all. I think she considered the principles of sentencing and the facts of the case and concluded that in this particular case, there was not a need for consecutive parole ineligibility periods.
And what do you make of this? This is a tragic and a very, as the justice said, a very disturbing case. You've been in the center of it all. Two people just minding their own business. What do you make of this case? What do you make of it in the end?
Well, I think that the fact that there's been a conviction and a sentencing is a tribute to the exceptional work done by the Vancouver City Police. They, just as an example, it's also a tribute to the members of the public who assisted the police. For example, over 100 private citizens and businesses, including Canadian Tire, provided surveillance video to the police, and that enabled the police to develop a timeline of Mr. Cam's movements before and after the murders. So I'm more focused on just the fact, unfortunately, that this happened, but the fact that the police were able to figure out who did it, and that person is now going to jail. As I mentioned a moment ago, I'm hoping that during the course of his time in custody, through psychiatric counseling and assessments, that the experts will be able to develop an idea of his motive. But at this point, he chose not to share that with us. My understanding from the legislation governing the parole board is that their paramount consideration is the safety of the public. I'm confident that they will review all the circumstances relating to the offense as well as his behavior in custody and determine whether or not it is safe to release him back into the public.
You talked to a number of the family members outside court. Can you just share with us their reaction to the decision?
Well, I'm going to let the family members speak for themselves if they choose. All I can do at this point is say that I hope that this verdict and sentencing brings some comfort to the family members and friends of Diana Maud Jones and Richard Jones. And I'm hoping that from this point forward, they will be able to focus less on how they died and more on celebrating how they lived.
Is there any possibility of an appeal by the Crown?
It's a little too early to consider that. We will look at Justice Giroux's decision carefully and consider that. But I certainly have no comment on that at the moment. The justice is that Mr. Cam has been sentenced to a life sentence. There is no guarantee that he will be released on parole in 25 years unless the parole board is satisfied that he is no longer a risk to the public.